Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the Irish NFL Show. We know Santa Claus was probably nice to all of you, but we decided to give you one more wee little treat for Christmas. Nicola Sturgeon may have cancelled Hogmanay, but we decided to give you a little wee Scottish treat. A Scottish-born player who not only played in the NFL for over a decade, but of course won 2 Super Bowls during his time and set a few key records I'm sure we'll touch on during the show. You're very welcome to the show from now based in Kansas City, but Lawrence Tynes, formerly of the New York Giants and Kansas City Chiefs. Lawrence, delighted to have you with us.
Thank you guys for having me. This is really cool. Who would have ever thought I would be doing an NFL Ireland, NFL UK? I mean, this is it's really cool that how far the game has spread.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly truly international, and like I alluded to, you weren't just Scottish born and just went back to the US. You lived there for 10 years, didn't you? I mean, your dad was a SEAL, I believe, and before you moved back to the US.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. Moving to Florida from Scotland is a pretty good move, right? From the beaches and sun to the get out of the rain. But what's even more interesting now is that there's another Scottish kicker kicking for the Giants now, in Graham Gano. So. Very similar stories. He moved to the same area in Florida where I grew up. His dad was in the Navy. So the stories are just uncanny how parallel they are. And so, obviously he's one of the best kickers in the NFL. So hopefully we see some more Scots. I did see that the punter just got released today, I believe.
From the Browns, yeah.
Yeah, from the Browns. So, well, the Giants could sign him. We need a punter. So you might as well have a Scottish specialist crew. So that would be pretty cool.
LT, I suppose there was a trend on Twitter recently where people were tweeting, their favorite kind of sports athlete at the moment and their favorite athlete from when they were 10 years old. And you had Xavier McKinney for your athlete now, and you had Paul McStay for your athlete when you were 10 years old. And that definitely caught our eye. I'm sure there are people over here who maybe weren't aware of your Scottish connections, but you spent the first 10 years in Scotland. Were you aware of the NFL at all at that point, or was it all just football or rugby, or can you talk us through that and when you became aware of the NFL?
Yeah, I knew nothing about the NFL. It was Celtic, right? That's all I ever knew. Paul McStay is obviously my favorite player of all time. I wanted to be Paul McStay. I feel like I would have been had I stayed there. But what's ironic is before I left, like literally like 2 weeks before we moved to the States, I played in a tournament in Glasgow, like an indoor, and we got approached by Rangers boys. My mom did, or my dad, somebody, and they wanted me to come up to Glasgow and do, I was in Campbelltown at the time. So they wanted me to come up and do like a tryout thing. They actually wanted to, me to come play for them. So I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision. Because a Celtic boy playing for Rangers, I don't know that I could have done it. Being as a Celtic fan as I was, although I know Mo Johnston was the first one to do it. But yeah, this whole journey has been absolutely wild. I just never envisioned, playing in the NFL. I never saw the NFL till I moved to Florida. And then, it was kind of the sport that all the cool guys played, I guess you could say. And a lot of people went to those games. So I said, I have to somehow figure out, a position that I can play. And I started playing, my junior year when I was 16, 17 years old, and it worked out. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how things work out.
LT, that journey obviously started off initially with the Chiefs. You're a practice squad player, but you did have a brief period back in the NFL Europe with the Claymores, and then obviously you moved on to the Canadian League. Did that help in terms of just your progression towards moving into the league itself, the NFL League?
1,000%. Yeah, I don't think without NFL Europe or the CFL, I would have made it. There's only 32 people in the world that get to kick in the NFL. And so, if you get some experience, obviously Scotland was great because I would go to practice and then come back to the hotel, which was in the center of Glasgow at the train station. And I just take the train over to my granny's and go eat some soup or, into Port Glasgow or Greenock, or Port Glasgow is where my granny lived, and just go over there and hang out with them. So it was like a 3-month vacation where I actually was with my family. So it was really cool. They didn't know what the hell they were watching when they came to football games. They just knew I kicked the ball, but it was really good to be around family. Yeah, those two leagues, the CFL for sure got me ready because it's 3-down football. A lot of people don't understand that game. It's football, but it only has 3 downs. And I got to kick a crazy amount of field goals. I think my second year up there, I was 51 for 62 on field goals. So being able to produce in a professional league, the Grey Cup has actually been around longer than the Super Bowl. And so you play in front of 30, 40, 50,000 people, and it gets you ready, it gets you confident. And so after that second year in Canada, I think I had 10 offers. So over a third of the NFL wanted to sign me. And of course I went back to Kansas City just because I was familiar with the organization. They probably gave me the most money. I don't remember. But I knew I could beat out Morton Anderson. So fortunately I did. I still think I'm the only player that's ever beaten Morton Anderson out. And it's good because I don't really like Morton Anderson.
You beat him out.
We can touch on that. That's another podcast. That's a whole another podcast.
I'm very tempted to go into that, given he's scored the second most amount of points in NFL history, I think, Vinatieri.
Well, we can do another show maybe in the off season because me and the Big Dane almost got into it one day. So
Scottish-Denmark relations were definitely cold and thawy, it sounds.
That's right.
We will definitely come back to that with you with another time, Lawrence. But you mentioned about going to the Chiefs and obviously breaking through into the main squad there, obviously, when you came back from NFL Europe and from the CFL. And we've been fortunate enough to interview a load of people on this show. We actually interviewed Graham Gano, you just alluded to, obviously the current New York Giants kicker, and Harrison Butker, the current Kansas City Chiefs kicker. And your connections with both those places ring through because obviously your time in both places. But how did your move really? Because a lot of people associate you with the Giants. Obviously, you follow them very strongly now as well still. And the key kicks in your career probably in the postseason came in your time in the Giants. How did that move from the Chiefs to the Giants come about? And what was your whole process through that period?
Well, I had gotten into a little bit of a contract dispute. I signed my tender. They offered me a 1-year tender. They offered me a long-term deal that I thought was not market worthy, so I didn't sign it. So I signed my tender, and then obviously the Chiefs drafted a kid named Justin Medlock. He may still be in the CFL. I don't know, but they took him out of UCLA. The general manager drafted him. He was a talented kicker. He had a great college career. And he only played like 1 game in the NFL with the Chiefs. And then he had a cup of tea with the Panthers down the road. But the Chiefs cut him after 1 game. So, but him being drafted, which kind of accelerated a little bit of my exodus, because when they drafted him, they don't typically cut 5th round picks, especially kickers. So I went up to the general manager and said, look, he's a UCLA guy, our general manager. He was the one who made the Medlock pick. Our special teams coach, Mike Prefer, who was the interim head coach for the Browns the other night, he didn't even know they were taking this kid. Mike had never seen him kick. So this was more of a GM pick. Obviously, they didn't think much of him. They cut him after 1 game. So I just went up to the general manager and said, look, I want to be traded. And so he gave me 3 options. It was the New Orleans Saints, Houston Texans, and New York Giants. So all 3 teams were offering, I believe it was a 7th round pick. So T-Mac, Thomas McGahee, current Giants special teams coach, was the assistant there. Well, T-Mac's like my brother. Like, we're like family. Like, he was my special teams coach in Scotland. He was with me in Kansas City. And so me and T-Mac have been connected forever. So T-Mac made the move, pitched me to the organization. They traded me for a 7th round pick. And, the best thing about getting traded, and naturally it works out for you, is you win a Super Bowl that year. I think the Chiefs were 2-14, but they went through like 6 kickers over the next 3 or 4 seasons until they found Ryan Suckup. So, we all have egos in sports, but it's always good when you see teams struggle after they trade you. Just that little Scottish, whatever I have in me that pissed me off, but it's kind of what helped me play so long.
Yeah, and play very well, because you remain the only kicker to have kicked 2 game-winning field goals in overtime. And we will get into that. But the lads always laugh. I love to do questions where you would take people back. And I want to take you back to week 17 of that 07 season.
Okay.
Giants against the Pats. And I suppose that there's always, teams sometimes rest up before the playoffs, but Tom Coughlin goes out, plays a full team, and the response, I suppose, it's kind of lauded by all the analysts. There's the famous kind of John Madden kind of calling it out in the voicemail, and I'm just wondering, from a player's perspective, was it a big deal for players? Was it just what Tom would ordinarily do? Can you talk to us maybe just a little bit around that, in terms of like the momentum and obviously going into the playoffs and what would follow?
That was the mental makeup of that team. We wanted to play the best team. We knew the Patriots were the best team throughout the regular season. The Antonio Pierces, the Strahans, the Tucks, the OCs, that's what kind of guys it takes to win a Super Bowl. So when guys want to compete, they want to compete against Tom Brady and Randy Moss and Welker and all those guys and Belichick. So in some ways, to me, that game felt almost as big as the Super Bowl. If thinking back on them, because if you remember, right, like 3 different networks carried that game. It was a humongous game. And there was this air of, walking out in pregame, this tenseness in the air that I still remember. One of the obviously biggest regular season games I've ever played in my life, but it just felt so cool. And obviously we came up a little bit short, but again, we knew we could play with that team. We really felt like we matched up well with them. And obviously we proved that, 6 weeks later in the Super Bowl. So, it was just one of those teams. Tom Brady, the Giants have his number. I think everyone has a team. I really do. And now Tom Brady is the Saints. He's got to figure out the Saints. But and Tom Coughlin has Belichick's number. You guys could fact check this, but I want to say Tom Coughlin's the only coach that has a winning record against Bill Belichick over time. I think it's close. It's like 5-4, but it's postseason and regular season combined. Tom Coughlin has a winning record against Belichick.
LT, Mark's a Patriots fan, so he'd probably definitely confirm that.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I think Sean Payton also does, but Tom Coughlin, because the Saints have had the Pats number a few times, but Tom Coughlin definitely had Belichick's number.
I think he does. It's either 500 or 5-4. I'm not specifically sure, but
I think it's 5-4. I do know.
Okay.
Okay,
so there it is. And he's the only coach, right? I mean, Sean Payton, I don't think has a winning record, does he?
No, I think Payton does as well, because Breeze always had a winning record over Brady. So basically the same eras.
That's a little nugget. I didn't know that.
Yeah. LT, I'll take you to the championship game that year, one before the Super Bowl. As a Giants fan, it probably sounds a bit strange, but I got a better buzz out of that game when you kicked the winning field goal in Green Bay as opposed to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, well, obviously, from your point of view, I don't know why, but you missed that game-winning field goal, and a lot of Giants fans would have felt, our opportunity's gone. We get the interception by Corey Webster in overtime. You skipped out there very quickly for that field goal. You didn't even give the head coach a decision to make. Can you recall Tom Coughlin in that situation? His face was red and all the rest that came with that game.
There was a lot to unpack in that game, but survival comes to mind, just trying to survive those temperatures, minus 28 wind chill. I mean, it was, I've talked about this at length. So the field goal I missed with about 8 minutes left, the 43-yarder wide left, I hit it really well. I just didn't make it. And if you probably read anything or heard stories about me, I'm the kind of guy, can we cuss on here? I don't give a shit. Like if I miss, I just missed. I can't, I'm not a guy that, kicking in the NFL is what do you do after you miss? It's not how many you make in a row, because everyone's going to make a ton of kicks in a row, right? But we see guys fall off cliffs when they miss a kick, and then they keep missing, and then they keep missing, and they can't get out of, Blair Walsh, right? Think about that little tiny kick he missed in the playoffs. Blair Walsh was never, ever really a guy again because he could never unpack that miss. So kicking to me was always, what do you do after you miss in the NFL? And that's how you're evaluated. So it was miserable conditions. The one at the very end, that was a terrible snap and hold. The whole operation was off. It was a mess. And in those conditions, if everything's not perfect, you're not going to make the kick. But when Corey made that pick, I was pretty sure that Tom was going to be him and Han about kicking it. So I said, let me just make his mind up for him. And so when Corey picked it, Steve Smith drops the ball maybe on third down on that drive. I sprinted out there because I knew I felt confident about the way I'd hit the 43-yarder if I just started a little bit further to the right. And I knew if we got a good snap and we got a good hole, I would make it. I mean, that's just my mindset. So we did. We got a good snap, we got a good hold, and we made the kick. So I never lacked for confidence. I almost had like athletic arrogance out there. I never let misses bother me. It was one strength of my career, which is the strength of a lot of these kickers out here now. The guys that play a long time are the guys that they can get over misses and compartmentalize. Because I think in my career, I only missed 2 field goals, maybe twice or 3 times in my entire career in a game. And that was obviously one of them.
I love you bringing up Blair Walsh, Lawrence, because the Blair Walsh project for a horror movie was always kicking in Minnesota because Vikings kickers have had such a horrific.
It's been a bad run, and it's a dome too.
Well, I mean, it didn't used to be, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, they were outside for a couple of years while they were building.
But also, I mean, just so our viewers are aware, like you kicked a 47-yarder in that same Packers game. That's still the longest ever field goal made in the postseason at Lambeau Field, which obviously in the postseason in January isn't a great place to kick in. So it's not like
it's still bizarre to me that still holds because the Packers are generally in the playoffs every year. This year it could get broken. I mean, there's so many guys kicking long field goals, and it's been a bit milder here in the U.S. I mean, I'm in Kansas City where it's usually snowing and 20 degrees on Christmas. It's going to be like 65 degrees on Christmas here. So
good
I think the weather's conditions. Yeah, it would be great. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to try and bring you back to the season though, because we're talking about the NFC Championship game, but obviously that doesn't mean as much if you don't win the game next week. And you won 2 of them, gratefully, obviously. Now for you, as Brian alluded to, I'm a Patriots fan, so it wasn't quite as enjoyable on my side, or for Patriots fans or the Patriots team. But there's a lot been said in various books about both those teams, about the speeches that Tom Coughlin gave before the games. Now, you were there and present for both of them. And, we all see Any Given Sunday and we all see Friday Night Lights and the big inspiring speeches. But Coughlin doesn't strike me as that kind of a rah-rah guy. But was there anything from those speeches or those moments that you particularly recall that you'd like to share?
He's Tom is a very personable person. Obviously, he's all business, black and white. This is your job, do it. But when he pours his heart out to the team like he did, especially the second one, I remember more. He talks about how you're not just a world champion, your family becomes world champions, and it's forever. And he goes, it's the greatest experience in life besides the birth of your children. But he called it the greatest professional experience you'll ever have, and he's right. The reason you guys are talking to me is because I won Super Bowls. The reason I have a lot of the things I have is because of, football and winning and being on good teams with a bunch of good guys. So, but Tom was he just always knew the right thing to say. He had a really good pulse of the team. And so anytime he could get fired up, I mean, I know you may not see that. He could get fired up on a Saturday night pregame. Very businesslike, but those 2 Super Bowls, he poured his heart into it. He got emotional. I don't think he had tears. I don't know if Tom Coughlin does cry, but he does get emotional. And you feel that. And so you respect him. And obviously we went out and played for him and all of the rest of our teammates.
I'll tell you a final one from me, but just I suppose in terms of you talked about Tom Coughlin there, but I'm sure it's the same in Scotland, but Irish people, we love stories, and the Giants honored that 2011 team this year, a decade later. Just wondering, in terms of, there's some characters around that team, Steve Weatherford and others. Are there any memories that you have that you look back on as a kind of a band of brothers that make you smile when you think back to a decade ago?
The week of the Super Bowl is always interesting because there's only one game in the world that's about to happen. So obviously the media scrutiny, but being in that environment with the guys who you've, spent blood, sweat, and tears with all year trying to make it, trying to get to that game, it's hard to explain what that feels like. But just being there, you don't want that week to end, because you're there with the 52 other guys and plus your practice squad that got you there. And there's a ton of stories. I can't think of any right off the top of my head. Maybe we'll do a show about Super Bowl week, and there's some fun stuff that goes on, but it's really business-like. I mean, it's fun, and you want to enjoy the moments and take it all in, but you also need to factor in, we're here for a game and we've got business to take care of, because your families are all there the whole week and talking about how they went and did this or did this NFL experience. And you're like, that's great. Hopefully we can celebrate and get really drunk after the game. That'd be fun.
LT, I love the Blue Rush podcast with Paul Swartz. I think the main reason why I love it so much is because you're brutally honest and in your assessment of the team, good or bad.
Thanks.
Is Joe Judge going to survive? I know Gettleman is not like the others.
It's such a we're going to record tonight when I get home for tomorrow's show. It's so weird. I've never been so undecided on a coach that's on a team that's this bad. Because there's something I really, really like about Joe Judge, and I don't know what it is, or is he just that good of a salesman that he talks so much? I really think he's a good coach, but maybe he's just not the guy, to be honest with you, because they've gotten worse. This team has gotten worse, and I know they've had a ton of injuries. So it's really hard to factor that in. I don't know. I will see. I could see it going either way. I would like for him to stay just for continuity purposes, but then what are we doing? I mean, they're not very good. They stink, and he's part of that. So
I find it very strange the past week, maybe the past 4. He's kind of changed his attitude in terms of the press conference. He's like as if a guy who knows he's coming back. Even today, he's saying, "Yeah, I spoke to Daniel Jones, and he's coming back, and he's going to be fine." Like, we don't even know if Daniel Jones will be there next year or should be there next year.
Yeah. And, I like him too. I just feel like he's been dealt a pretty bad hand with injuries and players and offensive line. It's almost like we just never helped him out enough. I don't know. There's a lot that we'll have to unpack here in the next couple of weeks, but.
Lawrence, I just want to say I love your honesty. The Giants stink. We're telling Brian that every week for basically the whole season. So it's good to hear it from you as well. But on a serious note, it's been great having you join us. We want to be really respectful of your time, but we will definitely reach out and maybe get you back on again, especially in the Super Bowl, because I'd love to just explore why Iron Brew is better than Carlsberg, or Macbeth is better than Hamlet, or why Lawrence Tynes is better than Morton Anderson. If we weigh up the Scotland-Denmark debate.
Oh yeah, we'll just have a Scotland versus Denmark match.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Lawrence, for our audience, if you want to catch him, as Brian just alluded to, do a great podcast on a weekly basis, the Blue Rush podcast. Is it a particular Twitter handle or a particular place where people
LT4Kicks is my Twitter.
That's the one. Thank you.
LT4Kicks. I just followed you guys. You guys didn't even follow me, by the way. What the hell?
We are following you.
No, I clicked follow and it.
Oh, well, I'll tell you something. Some underhanded Broncos fan within our group, and it's not Colin, must have unfollowed you. No, I thought we were following you.
Look at that rubbish orange jersey back there.
Thank you so much for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good night.